Hi guys.
Hey, welcome to the Memorial Day edition.
Week 6. This week 6 will probably be our last week of this kind of format. Next week is going to be something a little bit more fun for the last week. So, we will get started. This week we are figuring out Joe and Becky. So the first thing is just to watch this week's lesson video. You're going to complete the Quizlet, which is updated from this week's vocabulary words just by clicking right there. The third thing is you're going to watch a Bill Nye video on genes. So this has some things to do with what we're doing this week, and mainly just kind of a wrap up on genetics. So he's going to take you through a lot of things about genetics, what our genes do for us, and a bunch of stuff that we've already been talking about. So you're going to click right here. Now, an extra thing is there's some questions that go with the video that are in order of the video. This is an optional assignment. If you click right here, it's going to take you to those questions, and you can just jot them down on a sheet of paper. This is not required. However, it'll really help you when going to your Google Forms assignment to finish that. So I would highly recommend it. And it's just another optional activity to help you kind of wrap up this unit. And then the fourth thing will be to complete your Google form called Science and Genetics Week 6 assignment. That's under the Science tab, as we've been doing the past few weeks. And then you'll be done with week 6.
Looks pretty easy. Okay, so first vocabulary word is chromosome. And you can see there in the picture, there's a funny little X-shaped diagram there for you. And they're made of that DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. And they are found inside of the center of every cell in your body, and they carry all the information to make you who you are. And you receive one from your mom and one from your dad. And as you can see there, and you can see the X-shaped chromosome is a little bit different than the Y. So you can see the difference between a male and a female there on the side. And they contain genes, which again make you who you are. It's kind of the instructions for you. So remember that.
Awesome. So vocab number 2, we're looking at sexual reproduction, which is one of 2 ways that living things can reproduce. So if we look down at the picture on the bottom here, asexual reproduction is when you reproduce on your own. So a lot of plants do this. So you have the parent, and it's going to create a offspring all on its own. Whereas sexual reproduction, which is how we're born, we have a mom and a dad, and they are going to reproduce together. So the offspring are going to receive one copy of each chromosome, or half of their genetic material, from each parent. So you're going to get half of your genetic material from your mom, half your genetic material from your dad. So if there's more than one offspring, so taking it back to the unit challenge with Joe and Becky, they're siblings. If there's more than one offspring, or if you have a sibling, they're each going to have different combinations of the chromosomes from their parents. So that's why you don't look exactly like your siblings. That's why I bet Joe doesn't look exactly like Becky. And this is why Joe and Becky have different eyesight. One is color deficient and one is not. And this is because they're receiving different combinations of chromosomes from their parents. They're not receiving the exact same thing.
Okay, so here is what the chromosomes look like for Joe and Becky's parents. So you can see that Joe's mom carries that trait for color deficiency on one of her chromosomes, but she has the dominant trait of having the typical vision there on her other chromosome. So she's not color deficient, but she carries that trait, meaning she could pass it on to one or more of her offspring. And we know that she did. Joe's dad doesn't carry that color deficient trait. He just has normal vision. And we can also notice something else here, that color deficient trait is linked to the X chromosome. So we don't see any of those traits on the Y. And that's common with other traits too that might be specific to one chromosome. This one just happens to be linked to the X chromosome. So, so that's what we're starting with. And then when those two combine, I think we see on the next slide, the frequency of the offspring and what actually happened to Joe and Becky.
Yeah, so this is the Punnett square, like we looked at last week. This looks complicated, but we're going to walk through it. So this is the Punnett square for Joe and Becky's parents' eye gene. So the gene in their eye, OPN1MW, very interesting name for it. We have dad up here and we have mom over here. So all that they did was take what we know their chromosomes to be and put them on each side of the Punnett square. Then they took one chromosome, they took both of the chromosomes, from each parent and put them on the sides of the Punnett square. So we have the colorblind and typical vision chromosomes, X chromosomes on this side, and then we have the typical vision X and the Y for the dad over here. So what they did was the same as what we did last week. They took these and they are seeing not exactly what their kids would have, but the options for what their kids would have. So the probability of what their offspring will look like or what their eyes will be like. So when we combine a typical vision with a color deficient vision, we're going to get one of each. Well, because typical vision is dominant, that means that this is going to be a typical vision offspring. Here we're going to have a typical vision and a typical vision. So that is going to be typical vision. Here we have a Y chromosome coming from the dad, and we have a typical vision coming from the mom. So this is going to be typical vision. Now this one that's circled in red, the combination is the Y chromosome from the dad, which we know it's not linked on that. And then the colorblind X chromosome is on here. So because we have the colorblind X chromosome and the Y for which it isn't affected, we have the color deficient vision here. So because only one of these four options turns into someone with color deficiency, we know that this is what Joe received from his parents. He received his mom's color deficient X chromosome and then his dad's Y chromosome. Now, Becky, we don't know exactly what she received. She could have received any of these three options and she would have normal vision. So these two right here have two X chromosomes, which means it's going to be a female, and she is a female. So she received one of these two. She has two X chromosomes, but we don't know. She might be a carrier like her mom, or she might have two chromosomes for typical vision. So either one of these could be Becky's options, but we know this red circle is Joe's option.
So Ms. Fredericks, this is passed on by the mother, but shows up in the males, if you think about it. Yeah, because if Joe decides to have children someday, he can't pass it on to his son.
Right.
He only gives them the Y. And he could pass the gene on to his daughter, but she might also get that dominant normal vision gene.
Right. She could still have one of these options.
Right. So, but Joe can't have a son who's colorblind, right?
Yeah.
Unless the person that the mom would have to have.
Right. That chromosome also.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to think about. And this is why siblings look different, why they have different traits, is because Joe and Becky are receiving different chromosomes from their parents, different combinations of chromosomes from their parents. So they're getting chromosomes. We can't change the dad's chromosome for the eye. We can't change the mom's chromosomes for the eye, but they might get different combinations here. And that's what we're seeing, that Joe received a different combination than Becky did.
Yep. And he didn't get it from his dad.
Right, exactly.
Okay, So this is kind of a summary slide for you about figuring out why Joe and Becky have different types of vision. And so to summarize here, Becky and Joe each got some of their parents' genes, but not all, because your parents can only give you half of their own chromosomes. You get 23 from each parent, so equals 46. That's what each human being has. Which half is determined at random, so it's just like flipping a coin, or there's no pattern. Becky received chromosomes with different versions of that. What are you calling it, Miss Fredericks? OPN 1MW.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna go with that.
I gene than Joe. So their different alleles cause them to make differently shaped eye sensing proteins. Those are in the cones of your eyes. You have cones which perceive color. So their cones are different. As you can see then in a graph, they perceive different wavelengths of light differently. And you can see that on Joe and Green's, or excuse me, on Joe's graph, the red and green overlap very close. And on Becky's, you can see there's some space, so she can perceive those colors as being different, and Joe sees them as being very much the same. They can't differentiate between the red and the green. So different structure, different genes means different function, and they develop differently shaped proteins. And Joe's works in a way where he has trouble figuring out which color of popsicle he should eat. So that's why he keeps eating the wrong ones. So that brings us down to that unit challenge. How is that happening? Yeah, he just can't tell the difference. So, and he got it from his mama.
He did. Awesome. Well, that wraps up week 6. If you guys have any questions, come to office hours Tuesday, Thursday. As always, email us with any questions. And we are excited for some fun activities for next week to wrap things up with our remote learning for this year. So we hope you guys are well.
Yep. Take care. Have a great rest of your week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.